I logged into our bank account on a Tuesday morning in March and saw $437 where there should have been $127,000. My hand started shaking so badly I had to set down my coffee cup. The mug my granddaughter made me in art class, the one that says "World's Best Grandma," slipped and cracked against the kitchen counter. I stared at that screen for 10 full minutes, refreshing it over and over, certain it was a mistake, a glitch, something that would fix itself if I just waited. My name is Carol Henderson. I'm 66 years old, and that morning I discovered my husband of 40 years had gambled away our entire life savings. What I did next changed everything. Let me back up, because you need to understand what those numbers meant. $127,000 wasn't just money. It was 40 years of packed lunches. It was every birthday where I bought myself nothing and told myself that was fine. It was the vacation to Italy I never took, the new car I never bought, the fancy dinners I never ordered. It was me wearing the same winter coat for 15 years because it still works fine. It was Robert and me, sitting at this same kitchen table every Sunday night, planning our retirement, dreaming about finally traveling, about visiting our daughter in Seattle whenever we wanted, about spoiling our grandchildren without worrying about the cost. I met Robert when I was 23 years old. I was teaching second grade at Lincoln Elementary, and he was the new maintenance supervisor. He fixed the radiator in my classroom one freezing January morning, and I offered him coffee from my thermos. We got married 8 months later in a small ceremony at my parents' church. My wedding dress cost $42 from a consignment shop, and I felt like a princess in it. Robert wore his only suit, and we honeymooned for 3 days at a cabin his uncle owned in the mountains. We couldn't afford more, but we didn't care. We had each other and we had plans. For 40 years, those plans kept us going. I taught second grade for 37 years. Every year, the same routine. Up at 5:30, coffee, grade papers, leave by 7. Come home at 4. Make dinner, grade more papers. The weekends were for lesson planning and grocery shopping and laundry. I'd see my friends who didn't work wearing new clothes, getting their hair done every month, taking spontaneous trips to the beach. Sometimes I'd feel a pang of envy, but then I'd think about our savings account growing steadily, month after month, and I'd feel satisfied. Proud, even. We were being responsible. We were planning for our future. Robert worked maintenance for the school district, then later for a property management company. He'd come home smelling like paint thinner or WD-40, his hands rough and calloused. Sometimes his back would hurt, and I'd rub it while we watched television. "Just a few more years," he'd say, wincing as I worked out a knot. "Then we can rest. Then we can finally live." We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. More importantly, we were savers. While our friends bought boats and took cruises and renovated their kitchens, we put money away. $500 a month, every month, no exceptions. I remember the month Emily went to college, and our friends were taking out parent loans, stressed about how they'd pay for it. We'd been saving for her education since she was born. We wrote the check, and while it hurt to see that much money leave our account, we'd planned for it. We'd sacrificed for it. That's what you did. You planned ahead. You were responsible. Later, when we both got raises, we increased our savings to $800 a month. Then $1,000. We didn't upgrade our house or our cars. We didn't take expensive vacations. We lived modestly and saved aggressively, always thinking about that future day when we could finally relax and enjoy the fruits of our labor. Every dollar saved was a day closer to that dream. "This is for us," Robert would say, kissing my forehead as we made the monthly transfer. "This is for Italy. This is for that villa in Tuscany you're always looking at online." I had a Pinterest board. It was called Someday Soon. Pictures of cobblestone streets and vineyard tours and little cafes with red checkered tablecloths. Robert would tease me about it, but gently. "Soon, sweetheart," he'd promise. "As soon as we retire. We're going to eat so much pasta you'll be sick of it." We retired together in June of last year. I taught my last day of second grade, cried through the entire farewell party the other teachers threw me, and came home to find Robert had bought champagne. The cheap kind, because we were still savers, but it tasted like the most expensive thing in the world. We sat on our back porch, looking at our modest garden, and made real plans for the first time. September in Italy, we decided. We'd spend the whole month. Start in Rome, work our way north. We'd stay in little bed and breakfasts, eat at family restaurants, take cooking classes. We'd been waiting 40 years. It was finally time. But then September came and went and we didn't go. Let's wait until spring, Robert said. The weather will be better. More time to plan, too. Let's do it right. That made sense. I spent the fall learning Italian on an app, practicing phrases while I cooked dinner. Dove il bagno? I'd ask the empty kitchen. Quanto costa? Robert would laugh and kiss my cheek and tell me I sounded like a natural. We researched hotels and made spreadsheets. We were going to do it right. Then winter came, and Robert started going out more at night. Poker with the guys, he'd say, grabbing his jacket. Don't wait up. This was new. In 40 years of marriage, Robert had never been much of a social person. He liked being home. He liked our routine, but I didn't question it. We were retired now. He had more free time. Why shouldn't he enjoy it? Besides, he always came home by midnight, climbed into bed carefully so as not to wake me, and smelled like cigarette smoke and beer. Normal guy stuff, I thought. The poker games became more frequent. Twice a week, then 3 times. Sometimes he'd come home at 1 in the morning, too. Once, he didn't come home until dawn. I was frantic that night, called his cell phone 20 times. He didn't answer until 6 a.m. Sorry, sweetheart, he said, his voice hoarse. Phone died. Lost track of time. I'm fine, heading home now. When he walked in that morning, he looked terrible. His eyes were red, his clothes wrinkled, and he had that same cigarette smoke smell, but stronger, mixed with something else I couldn't identify. Stale alcohol. Sweat. Desperation, though I didn't recognize it then. Just a rough night, he said when I asked if he was okay. Didn't win anything. I'm going to bed. He slept until 4 in the afternoon. When he woke up, he was himself again. Made jokes over dinner, asked about the book I was reading, seemed fine. I pushed down my worry. We were adjusting to retirement, that's all. Finding new rhythms. It was normal. But then I started noticing other things. Little things. Our credit card bill was higher than usual. Just holiday shopping, Robert explained, even though it was February. When I pressed him, he got defensive. Carol, for 40 years we pinched every penny. Can't we enjoy ourselves a little now? We earned it. That made sense too. We had earned it. So I let it go. But the bills kept coming. $400 at restaurants I'd never heard of. $200 at a liquor store. $600 cash advance. Then another one the next week. Robert, I said, showing him the statement. What's going on? The guys and I went to a Celtics game, he said, not meeting my eyes. I picked up the tab for everyone. It's fine, Carol. We can afford it. But something in his voice wasn't right. Something in the way he wouldn't look at me. I'd known this man for 43 years, been married to him for 40. I knew when he was hiding something. But I also knew that pressing him when he got defensive never worked. So I waited. I watched. And I started checking our bank account more frequently. That's when I noticed the ATM withdrawals. $300 here. $500 there. Sometimes 2 or 3 in one day. Always late at night. Always from the same location on Route 22, just past the highway exit. I started keeping a notebook, writing down each withdrawal with the date and time. Monday, 11:47 p.m., $300. Thursday, 1:23 a.m., $500. Saturday, 2:15 a.m., $400. The pattern was unmistakable. This wasn't occasional cash for poker games. This was something else, something darker. I pulled up a map online, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I zoomed in on Route 22, following the highway exit. There was a gas station there, a McDonald's, and a casino. Riverside Resort and Casino, it was called. Open 24 hours. I clicked on the website and felt sick. Slot machines, blackjack tables, poker rooms. The homepage promised the best odds in the state and showed pictures of people celebrating wins, arms full of money, faces glowing with joy. How many times had Robert stood in that building, feeding our future into machines that were designed, mathematically designed, to take more than they gave? I sat there staring at that website for I don't know how long. My coffee went cold. The morning sun moved across the kitchen floor. Somewhere outside, I could hear children laughing, heading to school. Normal life continuing while mine was falling apart. I thought about 40 years of Sunday nights, planning and dreaming. I thought about my Pinterest board, those cobblestone streets I'd never walk. I thought about the coat I'd worn for 15 years because saving mattered more than comfort. My stomach dropped, but I still didn't want to believe it. Some part of me, the part that had loved this man for 43 years, the part that had built a life with him, that part was still scrambling for another explanation. Maybe it was near the casino, but that didn't mean he was going there. Maybe he stopped at the gas station. Maybe the ATM there just happened to be convenient. I was grasping at straws and I knew it. But I couldn't help it. Robert, I said that night over dinner, keeping my voice casual. Have you been to that casino out on Route 22? He froze with his fork halfway to his mouth. Just for a second, but I saw it. What? No. Why would you ask that? Just curious. Someone at church was talking about it. Oh. He relaxed, went back to eating. No, I've never been. Not my thing. He lied to me. Looked me right in the eyes and lied. That hurt worse than anything else so far. In 40 years, Robert had never been a good liar. He'd forget birthdays and try to cover it up, forget to pay bills and make excuses. But I always knew. And he always came clean within a day or two, apologetic and sheepish. This was different. This lie was smooth, practiced. How long had he been practicing? I started checking our account every day. Every morning, right after Robert left for his morning walk that had become part of his new routine. The balance kept dropping, slowly at first, then faster. $85,000, $79,000, $63,000. Each time, I felt like someone had reached into my chest and squeezed. This was our life. This was Italy. This was security and peace of mind and every sacrifice I'd ever made. Robert, we need to talk about our finances, I said one Sunday morning. I'd made his favorite breakfast, blueberry pancakes, and waited until he was in a good mood. I've been looking at our accounts, and the balance seems lower than I expected. Oh, that. He poured more syrup, not looking up. I moved some money around. Better interest rates at another bank. It's all fine, Carol. Don't worry about it. How much did you move? And which bank? Jesus, Carol, why the third degree? He stood up, abandoning his half-eaten pancakes. I've been handling our finances for 40 years. Have I ever steered us wrong? Have I ever not taken care of you? He had me there. Robert had always paid the bills, managed the accounts, made sure everything was handled. I taught all day and graded papers all night. I didn't have time to scrutinize every bank statement. I trusted him. That's what marriage was, wasn't it? Trust? You're right, I said quietly. I'm sorry. I just was planning for Italy and everything. Italy. His face changed. Shuddered, somehow. Yeah, about that. Maybe we should hold off another year. Give ourselves more cushion. Really do it right. Another year? Robert, we've been waiting 40 years already. I know, sweetheart, I know. He came over, kissed the top of my head. One more year won't hurt. Trust me on this. But I couldn't. Not anymore. That night, after Robert went out for another poker game, I sat down at the computer and logged into every single account we had. Checking, savings, the investment account we'd opened in the 90s, the CD that was supposed to mature next year. I pulled up statements, printed them out, spread them across the dining room table. The numbers made me sick. Our main savings account, the one that should have had $127,000, had $53,000. $74,000 gone. The investment account was down $40,000 from where it should have been. He'd been selling stocks, taking losses, pulling money out. The CD had been cashed out early with penalties. All told, we'd lost over $90,000 in less than 8 months. I sat at that table until 3 in the morning, when I heard Robert's car in the driveway. I didn't move, didn't clean up the papers. Just sat there waiting, my hands folded in front of me like I was praying. Maybe I was. I heard the car door close, heard his footsteps on the walkway, heard his key in the lock. The sounds were so familiar, so normal, the sounds of 40 years of him coming home. But nothing was normal anymore. When he walked in and saw me sitting there with all those statements spread out in front of me, his face went white. Not pale white, like every drop of blood had drained out of him in an instant. He froze in the doorway, one hand still on the doorknob, his jacket half off. For a long moment, we just looked at each other. I saw fear in his eyes. Yes, but also something else. Relief, maybe. Like part of him had been waiting for this moment, dreading it but also needing it. The burden of secrets is heavy. I knew that now. Carol, his voice cracked. Where is it? My voice was surprisingly steady, cold even. I barely recognized it as my own. Where's our money, Robert? I can explain. Where is it? I repeated, louder this time. Somewhere in the house, a clock was ticking. The refrigerator hummed. Outside, a dog barked. Normal sounds in an abnormal moment. He took 3 steps into the room and stopped, like there was an invisible barrier he couldn't cross. Or maybe he was afraid to get too close, afraid of what I might do. I'd never been a violent person, never raised my hand to anyone in my life. But in that moment, I understood how people could snap, how years of trust could curdle into rage so quickly you barely saw it coming. He sank into the chair across from me. For a moment, he looked like an old man, and I realized with a shock that he was an old man. We both were. We were 66 and 68, and our youth was gone, and apparently so was our money. The casino, he finally said. I've been going to the casino. Even though I'd known, hearing him say it out loud made it real in a way that seeing the ATM locations hadn't. How long? A couple years. A couple years? Robert, we just retired 8 months ago. We've lost $90,000 in 8 months. It got worse after retirement. He put his head in his hands. I had more time. And at first I was winning, Carol. I really was. I'd win 500, 1,000. It felt good. Like I was doing something right for once, providing something extra. But then I started losing. And I kept thinking if I just played a little more, I'd win it back. I'd win it all back plus extra, and we could go to Italy first class, stay in fancy hotels. I'd surprise you. Surprise me. I almost laughed, but it came out bitter, choked. You've surprised me all right. I'm sorry. He was crying now, actually crying, and in 40 years I'd only seen Robert cry twice. Once at his father's funeral, and once when our daughter was born. Seeing him cry should have moved me, should have made me want to comfort him the way I had for 4 decades. But I felt nothing. Or rather, I felt too much, and it had frozen me solid. Carol, I'm so sorry. I have a problem. I know I have a problem. I'll stop. I swear to God, I'll never go back there again. I looked at him across that table covered in damning statements, this man I'd shared my life with, and I barely recognized him. His face was puffy from crying, his hair uncombed, his shirt wrinkled. When had he started looking so old? When had the lines around his eyes gotten so deep? Or had I just stopped seeing him clearly years ago, viewing him through the soft filter of habit and history instead of seeing who he really was? How many times have you said that before? I asked quietly. To yourself, I mean. How many times have you driven home from that casino at 3 in the morning, promising yourself you'd never go back? How many mornings have you woken up, looked at me sleeping next to you, and sworn today would be different? He couldn't answer. His silence was answer enough. I wanted to believe him. Some part of me, the part that had loved this man for 43 years, wanted to reach across that table and hold his hand and say it would be okay. We'd figure it out together. But I couldn't, because I kept seeing those numbers. $90,000. 40 years of $500 a month deposits. 40 years of sacrifices. Gone. How bad is it? I asked. Tell me everything. Right now. He told me. Through tears and shame, he told me everything. He'd started going to the casino 2 years ago with a friend from work. Just for fun at first, $20 here and there. But then he started winning. Small amounts, but it felt good. It felt like he was good at something. Teaching had been my thing. I was the one who got awards, who had former students come back and thank me, who made a difference. Robert fixed toilets and changed light bulbs. Necessary work, but not the kind anyone notices or celebrates. At the casino, I felt important, he said. The staff knew my name. They'd comp my drinks. They'd ask how I was doing. And when I'd win, even just $50, I felt like I'd accomplished something. Like I was smart. The wins got bigger. $1,000 on slots. $2,000 on blackjack. He opened a separate bank account I didn't know about and deposited the winnings there. I was going to surprise you, he said again. I was going to show you a statement with an extra $50,000 and tell you we could afford to stay in Italy for 2 months instead of 1. But the wins didn't keep coming. He started losing. First the separate account drained. Then he started taking money from our joint accounts, telling himself he'd win it back before I noticed. He'd have stretches where he'd win a few thousand and he'd think he'd figured it out, cracked some code. But then he'd lose it all and more. The losses got bigger. 5,000 in one night. 8,000. Once, he lost $12,000 between midnight and 4 a.m. Just kept feeding money into a slot machine that he was certain was about to pay out big. I couldn't stop, he whispered. Even when I wanted to. I'd promised myself I wasn't going. And then I'd find myself in the car driving there. I'd tell myself just 1 hour, and I'd look up and it would be dawn. Carol, I think I'm addicted. I think I need help. You're damn right you need help. I stood up, started gathering the statements. But first, you're going to tell me the whole truth. Are there other accounts I don't know about? Credit cards? Loans? His silence was answer enough. Robert, what else? I took out a home equity line of credit. $37,000. The room spun. You took out a loan against our house? We have plenty of equity. I was going to win it back and pay it off before you ever knew. Carol, please. What else? Is there more? I borrowed from my brother. $15,000. Your brother knows? Who else knows about this? No one. I told him it was for a car. He doesn't know. I did the math. $90,000 from our accounts. $37,000 against the house. $15,000 from his brother. $142,000. Gone. My legs gave out and I sat back down hard. $142,000. That was my entire teaching career. That was every single sacrifice I'd ever made. That was my mother's china I'd sold after she died instead of keeping it. That was my father's coin collection I'd convinced him to sell when he needed money for his cancer treatment, promising him we'd buy it back someday. That was everything. Get out, I heard myself say. Carol, please, let me explain more. Get out of this house right now. Where am I supposed to go? I don't care. Go to your brother's. Go to your casino. I don't care. But you need to leave right now, or I'm going to do something we'll both regret. He stood up slowly. Carol. Now, Robert. He left. I heard his car start, heard him drive away. Then I sat in that chair surrounded by all those statements, and I cried. I cried for 40 years of saving. I cried for Italy, for that villa in Tuscany I'd never see. I cried for the naive young woman in the $42 wedding dress who thought love and trust were the same thing. I cried until I had nothing left, and then I just sat there, empty. The sun came up. Birds started singing outside. The world kept turning, same as always, not caring that mine had just ended. Around 7 a.m., my daughter Emily called. She called every Tuesday morning, regular as clockwork. I almost didn't answer, but habit made me pick up. Hi, sweetie, I said, trying to sound normal. Mom, are you okay? You sound terrible. I'm fine. Just tired. Mom, Emily had inherited my ability to know when people were lying. What's wrong? And I told her. All of it. The casino, the missing money, the loan against the house. Everything. She was silent for so long I thought the call had dropped. Mom, she finally said, her voice shaking. Mom, you need to protect yourself. Right now. Today. You need to see a lawyer. A lawyer? He's your father. He's an addict who stole over $100,000 from you. Mom, you worked your entire life for that money. You can't let him take you down with him. Please, promise me you'll call a lawyer today. I promised. After we hung up, I sat there for another hour. Then I looked up divorce attorneys in our area. The word felt foreign, impossible. Divorce. People our age didn't get divorced. We stuck things out. We worked through problems. But when I called the office of Patricia Chun, attorney at law, and explained in broad terms what was happening, she said something that changed everything. Mrs. Henderson, she said, I'm not trying to scare you, but addicts can be unpredictable when their access to money is threatened. You need to protect your assets immediately. Today, if possible. That lit a fire under me. Protect my assets. What was left of them, anyway? I made an appointment for that afternoon. Then I called our bank. I need to move money into an account in just my name, I told them. I moved half of what was left in our checking and savings accounts, roughly $30,000, into a new account that only I could access. It felt like stealing, even though it was my money. My name was on those accounts too. I'd earned that money, but 40 years of marriage made it feel wrong to separate our finances. Then I went through the house and gathered documents. Marriage certificate, both our social security cards, tax returns, bank statements, investment statements, the deed to the house, the home equity loan documents I found in Robert's desk drawer, hidden under old manuals for appliances we didn't own anymore. As I went through his desk, I found other things too. Casino loyalty cards, receipts for meals I hadn't eaten, drinks I hadn't ordered, a business card for a gambling addiction hotline with a number written on it in Robert's handwriting, then crossed out. He'd known. He'd known he had a problem and he'd tried, maybe, to get help. But not hard enough. Not soon enough. Not before destroying everything we'd built. I put everything in a folder, my hands shaking as I organized 40 years of our life into neat stacks. Our marriage certificate with its fancy calligraphy. Our tax returns showing year after year of modest income and careful saving. The deed to this house we'd bought in 1989. So proud to finally be homeowners. I remember the day we'd closed on this house. Robert had carried me over the threshold, both of us laughing, and we'd made love on the floor of the empty living room because we didn't have furniture yet. That felt like a different lifetime, a different marriage, a different me. I drove to Patricia Chen's office, gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles were white. The office was in a modern building downtown, all glass and steel, and for a moment I almost turned around. This felt so final, so real. Walking into a divorce lawyer's office meant admitting my marriage was over, that 40 years had led here, to this glass building and these papers and this ending I'd never imagined. She was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with kind eyes and a firm handshake. Tell me everything, she said, and I did. She listened, taking notes, asking occasional questions. When I finished, she sat back. Mrs. Henderson, I'm going to be frank with you. This is going to be ugly. Gambling addiction is serious, and the debt he's accumulated is substantial. But the good news is you live in a state with equitable distribution laws, which means assets and debts get divided fairly, not necessarily equally. Given that he incurred these debts through what I'd call marital misconduct, we have a strong case for you to retain more of the marital assets. I don't want to destroy him, I said. He's sick. He needs help. That's admirable, but my job is to protect you. Can he get help? Yes, and he should. But that doesn't change the fact that he gambled away your retirement and put your home at risk. You need to think about your future, Mrs. Henderson. You're 66 years old. How many more years can you work if you need to? How will you live? She was right. As much as it hurt, she was right. We spent the next 2 hours going through everything, building a case. She recommended I freeze our joint credit cards, which I did right there from my phone. She recommended I document everything, which I started doing immediately. She drew up initial divorce papers. When I signed them, my hand shook so badly I could barely write my name. What happens now? I asked. Now we serve him. I recommend he be served at a neutral location, not at your home. Do you know where he's staying? I called his brother Mark. Is Robert there? Yeah, he showed up last night. Carol, what's going on? He looks terrible. I'm filing for divorce. Process servers will be coming to your house tomorrow. I wanted to warn you. Silence. Then, Jesus Christ. What did he do? Ask him. I hung up. That night, alone in our house for the first time in 40 years, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about young Robert, the one who'd fixed my radiator and made me laugh, the one who'd promised to take care of me, to build a life with me. Where had that man gone? When had he been replaced by this stranger who could lie to my face and gamble away our future? The next few days were a blur. Robert was served with divorce papers at his brother's house. The process server called me to confirm it was done, and I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no regret, just a vast emptiness. He called, crying, begging me to reconsider. I'll go to counseling, he promised, his words tumbling over each other in desperation. I'll go to Gamblers Anonymous. I'll do anything. Carol, please don't do this. Don't throw away 40 years. You threw away 40 years, I told him, my voice flat. You did this, not me. And I meant it. I'd played by the rules. I'd been faithful, honest, responsible. I'd done everything right. This wasn't on me. But not everyone saw it that way. My friends from church started calling. Apparently word had gotten out the way it does in small towns, through a network of whispers and concerned glances. Some were supportive, telling me I was brave, that I deserved better. But others seemed to think I should give him another chance. For better or worse, Carol, my friend Janet said gently when she came by with the casserole. She set it on the counter, her face full of sympathy and judgment in equal measure. That's what we promised, in sickness and in health. He gambled away $142,000, I told her, not bothering to hide the edge in my voice. He took out a loan against our house without telling me. He lied to my face for 2 years. At what point am I allowed to say enough is enough? She didn't have an answer for that, just patted my hand and said she'd pray for me, which felt more like a criticism than comfort. After she left, I threw the casserole away. I couldn't eat food made with judgment baked into it. But there were others who understood. My colleague from school, Margaret, who'd been divorced for 10 years, called and said simply, "You did the right thing. Don't let anyone make you doubt that." Those words meant more than any casserole. The validation from someone who'd walked this path before me, who knew how hard it was to choose yourself over a failing marriage. Emily flew in from Seattle. She walked into our house, took one look at me, and wrapped me in a hug. "Oh, Mom, you look terrible." "Thanks, sweetie. I'm serious. When's the last time you ate?" I couldn't remember. She took me to the grocery store, filled my cart with easy meals, and made me promise to eat. She stayed for a week, helping me sort through 40 years of accumulated life. What to keep, what to donate, what was even mine versus Robert's. Keep the good stuff, she advised. The things that matter to you. Let him have whatever he wants of the rest. You're starting over, Mom. Fresh start. Starting over at 66 felt impossible. But Emily was right. This was my chance to build a life that was just mine, not tied to anyone else's decisions or addictions. The divorce moved forward. Robert's lawyer tried to argue for an equal split of assets and debts. Patricia Chin shut that down hard. She presented evidence of all the gambling losses, all the secret accounts, all the lies. The judge was not sympathetic to Robert. In the end, I got the house, clear of the home equity loan which Robert was ordered to pay back. I got my full pension and 3/4 of what was left in our joint accounts. Robert got his pension, 1/4 of the joint accounts, and all of the debt he'd accumulated. $142,000 of it. He'd have to sell his truck, downsize, maybe even declare bankruptcy. His problem, not mine. That sounds cold, but I'd stopped feeling guilty. I'd worked for 40 years. I'd saved every penny. I'd been a faithful wife, a good mother, a dedicated teacher. I'd done everything right. His choices had consequences, and I wasn't going to pay for them anymore. The divorce was finalized in August, 1 year after we'd retired. I thought I'd feel sad, signing those papers, but mostly I felt relieved, free, lighter. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine, went out to my back porch, and looked at my garden. It needed weeding. The tomatoes were overgrown, but it was mine, all mine. For the first time in my adult life, this house and this life belonged only to me. Emily called. "How are you doing?" "I'm okay. Really okay, actually." "Good. Because I have something to show you." She sent me a link. It was for a 2-week tour of Italy. Small group, all women over 60. Cooking classes, wine tasting, museums, countryside drives. It left in October. Mom, I'm paying. Don't argue with me. You're going to Italy. You've earned it. I tried to argue. Of course I did. But Emily was stubborn. Mom, you taught second grade for 37 years. You shaped hundreds of young lives. You raised me right. You saved every penny for a future that one man tried to steal from you. You're going to Italy. You're going to eat so much pasta you get sick of it. And you're going to send me pictures of every single meal. That's final. I went. I spent 2 weeks in Italy with 11 other women, all of whom had their own stories of resilience and survival. There was Margaret, 73, whose husband had left her for his secretary after 45 years. There was Linda, 68, who'd survived breast cancer and decided to see the world while she still could. There was Joan, 71, whose children had stopped speaking to her after she refused to bankroll their lifestyle. Each woman had her own scars, her own story of survival. We bonded over shared pain and newfound freedom. We ate incredible food, drank too much wine, laughed until our sides hurt. In Rome, we threw coins in the Trevi fountain and made wishes. Mine was simple: to never again let anyone make me feel small. In Florence, we stood in front of Michelangelo's David, and our tour guide talked about the artist's vision, his dedication, how he'd seen the statue inside the marble and simply carved away everything that wasn't David. I thought about that a lot. Maybe that's what this year had been. Carving away everything that wasn't essential wasn't truly me until what remained was strong and real and mine. We took a cooking class in a villa in Tuscany, the exact kind of place I'd pinned on my Pinterest board years ago. The villa had weathered stone walls covered in climbing roses, a terrace overlooking rolling hills of grapevines, and a kitchen that smelled like garlic and fresh basil. Our instructor, a 70-year-old Italian grandmother named Rosa, taught us to make fresh pasta. Her hands were gnarled with arthritis but moved with practiced grace as she demonstrated kneading technique. The secret, she said in heavily accented English, is to put love in the dough. You must knead with love. Not anger, not sadness, not worry. Only love. The pasta, she knows the difference. I thought about that while I kneaded, my hands working the smooth dough. It felt good, physical, real. The dough was cool and elastic under my fingers, and the motion was meditative. Love. I'd put love into 40 years of marriage. I'd needed that love into every sacrifice, every packed lunch, every dollar saved. Robert had taken that love and fed it into slot machines. But here I was standing in a Tuscan villa, making pasta with my own hands, surrounded by women who understood survival. The dough under my hands was just flour and eggs and water, but it felt like possibility. It felt like starting over. It felt like proof that even at 66, broken and betrayed, I could still create something beautiful. Rosa came over and watched my technique, nodding approvingly. "Brava," she said, patting my shoulder. "You have strong hands. Baker's hands. You make this with love, I can see it." The pasta we made that day was the best I'd ever tasted. Maybe because I'd made it myself. Maybe because I was eating it in Tuscany with women who got it, who understood. Maybe because for the first time in a year, I felt genuinely happy. Robert hadn't destroyed me. He'd tried, but he'd failed. I was still here, still standing, still capable of joy. On the last night of the tour, we all went to dinner at a small family restaurant Rosa recommended. The pasta was perfect, the wine was better, and the company was best of all. As we sat there laughing and talking, my phone buzzed. A text from Robert. I almost didn't read it, but curiosity won. "I'm in a treatment program. 90 days inpatient. I hope you're doing okay. I'm sorry for everything. You deserve better." I stared at that text for a long time. He was right. I had deserved better. But I also realized something sitting there in that Italian restaurant, full of good food and surrounded by good women. I had better now. Not the better I'd planned for 40 years, but a different better. A better that was mine alone, that no one could gamble away or lie about or destroy. I had my freedom, my independence, my self-respect. I had this trip. I had my daughter who loved me enough to give me this gift. I had a future that was open and uncertain and a little scary, but also full of possibility. I didn't respond to Robert's text. I put my phone away, ordered another glass of wine, and listened to the stories of these brave, funny, resilient women around me. Women who'd survived divorces and deaths and betrayals. Women who'd rebuilt their lives from nothing. Women who, like me, had discovered that the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's living well. When I got home from Italy, I found Robert had cleared out his things from the house. He'd left a note on the kitchen table. I'll be in treatment until November. My brother has my contact information if you need anything. The house looks good. You always took better care of it than I did. I hope Italy was everything you wanted. You deserve to be happy, Carol. I'm sorry I forgot that. Robert. I read the note once, then threw it away. Not out of anger, but because I didn't need it. I didn't need his apology or his permission to be happy. I'd given myself that permission when I signed those divorce papers. I started filling my days with things I'd always wanted to do, but never had time for. I joined a book club at the library. We met every other Thursday evening, and I discovered I loved discussing stories with other people, hearing different interpretations, debating character motivations. I'd spent 37 years teaching children to read, but I'd forgotten the pure joy of reading for myself, of losing myself in someone else's story. I volunteered at a literacy program, helping adults learn to read. My first student was a 53-year-old man named Marcus, who'd hidden his illiteracy his entire adult life. Watching his face the first time he successfully read a full paragraph, seeing that pride and accomplishment reminded me why I'd become a teacher in the first place. It wasn't about the pension or the summers off. It was about this, helping people unlock potential they didn't know they had. I took a watercolor class at the community center and discovered I was actually pretty good. My teacher, a woman named Diane who wore paint-splattered overalls and had gray hair down to her waist, said I had an eye for color and composition. I'd never considered myself artistic. I was practical Carol, sensible Carol, Carol who packed lunches and saved money. But here I was at 67, learning that I could create beauty. My first real painting was of that Tuscan villa where I'd learned to make pasta. I worked from a photograph I'd taken, mixing colors until I got the exact shade of those weathered stone walls, the precise green of the grapevines. When it was finished, I hung it in my kitchen where I could see it every morning, a reminder of who I'd become. I adopted a cat from the shelter, a cranky old tabby that no one else wanted. She was 13 years old, missing part of one ear, and had been at the shelter for 8 months. She's not very friendly, the shelter worker warned me. She doesn't like to be held, and she hisses at most people. Are you sure? I looked at that beat-up old cat with her skeptical yellow eyes and recognized something of myself in her. Cautious, scarred, unwilling to trust easily. I'm sure, I said. I named her Tuscany, Tess for short. She slept on my bed every night and judged me silently while I painted, and I loved her. Sometimes she'd sit on the windowsill while I worked on my watercolors, her tail twitching, and I'd talk to her about my day. She never answered, but she listened in her way. That was enough. My former teaching colleagues invited me to lunch one day. We met at a little cafe downtown, the kind with fresh flowers on every table. As we ate and laughed and caught up on school gossip, my friend Margaret leaned over. Carol, you look 10 years younger. What's your secret? Divorce, I said, and we all laughed. But it was true. The weight of Robert's betrayal, of 40 years of being responsible for someone else's choices, of always putting someone else first, it had lifted. I was lighter, freer, younger. Somehow, even though I was pushing 67. That Christmas, Emily brought my grandchildren to visit. They're 7 and 9, beautiful kids with her eyes and her laugh. We baked cookies together, decorated the house, watched old Christmas movies. On Christmas morning, as I watched them tear into presents I'd been able to afford because I'd kept my pension and my savings, I felt grateful. Not for what had happened, but for what I'd survived. For the strength I'd found to protect myself. For the future I still had. Robert got out of treatment in November. He called once, awkwardly, to let me know he was staying with his brother and looking for a job. I'm working the program, he said. Going to meetings every day. I'm better, Carol. Not cure, but better. That's good, Robert. I'm glad you're getting help. How are you doing? I'm good. Really good, actually. That's good. That's really good. A long pause. I'm sorry, Carol. For all of it. You deserved so much better. Yes, I agreed. I did. But I have better now. I hope you stay healthy, Robert. I really do. But I need to go. After I hung up, I realized I meant it. I did hope he stayed healthy. Not because I wanted to reconcile or because I forgave him exactly, but because holding on to anger was like drinking poison and expecting someone else to die. I'd spent too many months angry. Now I just wanted to be free. A year after the divorce, I did something I never thought I'd do. I started dating. Not seriously, just coffee here and there with men I met through the volunteer program or the book club. It felt strange at first, almost wrong, but also exciting, new. At 67 years old, I was having first dates. I was learning about new people, sharing my story, hearing theirs. Some of the men were recently widowed and sad. Others were divorced and bitter. But a few were like me, starting over, embracing possibility. I met someone named Richard at the library book club. He was a retired accountant, 70 years old, with kind eyes and a gentle sense of humor. The first time we really talked, was after a particularly heated discussion about the book we'd read. Everyone else had filtered out, but Richard and I stayed, still debating the ending. I think the author gave her too easy a resolution, I said. Real life doesn't tie up that neatly. Speaking from experience, he asked, and there was something in his tone that wasn't prying, just understanding. Recently divorced, I said, surprising myself with how easily the words came. My husband had a gambling problem. Lost everything we'd saved. I'm sorry, Richard said, and the way he said it, I knew he meant it. My wife passed away 3 years ago. Cancer. I thought I'd never want to date again, never want to open myself up to that kind of pain. But loneliness is its own kind of pain, isn't it? We started having coffee after the book club meetings. Just coffee. Nothing fancy. At the little cafe down the street that made terrible coffee but had comfortable chairs. We'd talk about books, about our lives, about everything and nothing. He told me about his wife, Nancy, how she'd made him laugh every day for 46 years. I told him about Robert, about the betrayal, about discovering strength I didn't know I had. Then coffee became dinner. Italian food, which made us both laugh because I told him about my trip to Tuscany. I'd love to go someday, he said. I always thought Nancy and I would travel more after I retired, but then she got sick, and well, you never know how much time you have. No, I agreed. You really don't. Then dinners became weekend trips to museums and parks. Richard loved art, really loved it in a way I was just learning to. He'd stand in front of a painting for 10 minutes, really looking at it, seeing things I'd walk past. Look at the way the light hits here, he'd say, pointing. The artist spent hours getting that exactly right. That's devotion. I thought about my watercolors at home, my amateur attempts, and felt inspired to try harder, to see more deeply. He knew about Robert, about the gambling, about everything. I'd learned my lesson about secrets and lies. I'm not looking to get married again, I told him early on. I like my independence. I like having my own space. That's fine with me, he said. I like my independence too. But I also like spending time with you. Can't we do both? We could. We did. Richard became a good friend, then more than a friend, but always with the understanding that we were both complete people on our own. We enhanced each other's lives, but we didn't need each other. That made all the difference. On the second anniversary of my divorce, I threw a party. A freedom party, I called it. I invited all my friends from church, from the book club, from the volunteer program. Emily flew in with the grandkids. Richard came, of course. We had a barbecue in my backyard, the garden I'd spent 2 years perfecting. We ate too much food, drank wine, told stories, laughed. As the sun set and fireflies started appearing, Emily found me in the kitchen. Mom, this is amazing. You seem so happy. I am happy, I realized. For the first time in a long time, I'm genuinely happy. Dad called me last week, she said carefully. He wanted to know if you'd be willing to talk to him. He wants to apologize in person. I thought about it. A year ago, I would have said no immediately. But I'd spent 2 years working on myself, on healing, on letting go of anger. Maybe someday, I said. But not yet. I don't think I'm ready for that yet. That's fair. She hugged me. Mom, I'm so proud of you. What you did, protecting yourself, starting over, it took so much courage. I didn't feel courageous. I felt terrified. That's what courage is, being terrified and doing it anyway. As I stood in my kitchen, surrounded by the sounds of laughter and conversation from my backyard, I realized she was right. I had been courageous, not in some grand, dramatic way, but in all the small ways that mattered. Getting up each morning after the discovery, making the hard phone calls, signing the divorce papers, moving money, hiring a lawyer, going to Italy alone, adopting Tess, joining the book club, saying yes to coffee with Richard. Each small act of courage had built on the last until I'd rebuilt my entire life. I picked up my wine glass and went back outside. My garden looked beautiful in the fading light. The tomatoes I'd planted were thriving. The roses were blooming. Everything I'd planted for me. Everything growing here was mine to tend or not, to harvest or not, to enjoy or not. No one could take that away. No one could gamble it away. It was mine. That's what Robert never understood. Money, houses, things, they can be taken or lost or gambled away. But the life you build for yourself, the person you become, the strength you find, that's yours forever. He'd taken $142,000 from me, but he'd also given me something I never had before. He'd given me proof that I could survive anything, that I was stronger than I'd ever known, that I could build a beautiful life on my own terms without needing anyone's permission or approval. I look back now at that Tuesday morning when I saw $437 where there should have been $127,000, and I don't just see the end of my marriage. I see the beginning of my life, the real life I was always meant to have. Not the one I'd planned for 40 years, but the one I claimed for myself. So to anyone out there who's facing betrayal, who's discovered that someone they trusted has lied to them, stolen from them, put their security at risk, let me tell you what I learned. It's not too late. You're not too old. You're not too invested to walk away. Yes, it will be hard. Yes, it will be scary. Yes, you'll cry and doubt yourself and wonder if you're doing the right thing. But on the other side of that fear and doubt is freedom, is peace, is a life that's truly yours. I never did get to stay in that villa in Tuscany for a month like I'd planned, but I spent 2 weeks there, surrounded by strong women, learning to make pasta with love. And you know what? 2 weeks of real happiness, of authentic joy, of true freedom, is worth more than 40 years of false security. The house is quiet now. Tess is curled up on the couch next to me, purring. Richard will be here in an hour to take me to dinner. Tomorrow, I'm volunteering at the literacy center, then meeting the book club in the afternoon. Next month, Emily and the grandkids are visiting for a week. In the spring, Richard and I are taking a trip to Ireland. My life is full. My future is bright. My bank account is secure, protected by my name alone. And Robert? He's working as a night janitor at a grocery store, living in a small apartment, going to meetings every day, slowly paying back his debts. I don't wish him ill, but I don't wish him back either. He made his choices. I made mine. The difference is I chose me. And for the first time in 40 years, that feels exactly right. Sometimes, late at night, I think about that young woman in the $42 wedding dress. The one who thought love and trust were the same thing. The one who believed that sacrifice always paid off, that doing the right thing guaranteed a happy ending. I wish I could tell her that life is more complicated than that. That people you love can hurt you in ways you never imagined. That trust, once broken, can't always be repaired. But I'd also tell her this: you're stronger than you know. You'll survive things you can't imagine surviving. And on the other side of the worst betrayal of your life, you'll find the best version of yourself. That morning when I saw our bank account had $437 instead of $127,000, I thought my life was over. I was wrong. My old life was over. My real life was just beginning. And it turns out, real life, authentic life, chosen life, is worth every penny of that $142,000 I lost. Because here's the truth Robert never understood and maybe never will. You can't gamble away someone's spirit. You can't bet away their strength. You can't lose their worth at a slot machine. I'm worth more than $142,000. I always was. It just took losing it all to finally figure that out. My name is Carol Henderson. I'm 68 years old now. And this is how I discovered that the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's living so well, so fully, so authentically, that the person who tried to break you becomes irrelevant to your happiness. Robert didn't break me. He freed me. And for that, after everything, I suppose I should thank him. But I won't. Because this freedom, I claimed it myself. I chose it, fought for it, built it with my own 2 hands. Just like that pasta dough in Tuscany. The secret is to knead with love. And I finally learned to love the one person I'd been putting last for 40 years. Myself. That's the real jackpot. And it's one that no one, not even a gambling addict husband, can ever take away.